All right, everyone. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's April 14th, 2021. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team while showing them the ropes. For those of you interested in that, you can head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started and book a call with me. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to our YouTube channel, as well as follow up with an email so you can share that with your team. So with that said, as you can hear, I'm a little bit under the weather today. So apologize the very nasal broadcast coming to you. So just on time, in front of every one of our, or just ahead of every one of our office hours segments, HashiCorp announces a new release of Terraform. So Terraform 0.15, the much anticipated last release before Terraform 1.0, has just, there it is, exactly, has just dropped. And that was about 3 hours ago. So nothing that big to announce if you've been following along with the other release candidates and alphas there. This is just the amalgamation of all of those small improvements. One of the notable things is like the directory argument is now formally just been moved to a chdir argument. So you can't pass the directory as the final argument. Instead, just use the chdir command as well. It introduces other things like you can prevent the lock file from getting updated during Terraform init. Lock file read only here. That's the option I was thinking of. Any other things people want to emphasize that have been kicking the tires on some of the Terraform 0.15 release candidates? All right. I'll move on to the next announcement. So as we all heard, the big brouhaha between regarding Elasticsearch and Amazon parting ways, launching their own fork of that. Well, now that fork has been formally renamed as well to OpenSearch. Surprise, there's no other OpenSearch already that's conflicting with, but so they are rebranding as OpenSearch, and all future development will go into that. Also, something I found rather fascinating was Amazon announced official support for OpenShift, which is the pass built on top of Kubernetes. Still requires some host level OS modifications, but for Kubernetes. I guess this is the one pass that maybe is surviving then because of the relatively significant enterprise adoption. So I was just doing some Googling earlier. I couldn't see any Terraform support or feature requests for this yet, but I assume that that might be on the horizon then, if there's going to be a fully managed service for ROSA. Anybody look into this announcement anymore regarding the AWS Red Hat OpenShift service? All right. The other announcement is 1Password. They are now fully embracing secrets automation. They've been historically more of a consumer-based secrets manager that moved into business and then subsequently enterprise. The differentiator with 1Password and some of the other options out there has historically been the native desktop client supports, which are very nice. I think LastPass has kind of moved over there, and now there's so many freaking password managers I can't keep my head straight. So I see 1Password doing this as a major differentiator, so they become more of a one-stop shop. I also think that they felt a lot of pressure to come out with this and come out with it fast, by HashiCorp announcing, from the HashiCorp cloud platform, the Vault access. Now, HashiCorp Vault screams more functionality than 1Password secrets automation. But what I foresee is that 1Password is now seeing that, hey, this is our domain. Let's see if we can carve out a niche for ourselves. What they have, is a very nice GUI, a pretty friendly way to manage integration secrets or shared secrets with ACLs. And I see that this is one way of them trying to solidify their foothold in that. And what's cool with this announcement is also, and they link to it here, is the documentation. So out of the gate, Kubernetes first-class citizen support, Terraform provider support, some pretty clear documentation on how to set it up. And the way you build it is basically you have a Connect server in your environment, in your VPCs that interfaces with 1Password, and then your apps communicate with that connection server. But the system of record at all time is your 1Password cloud deployment. And the example here, like for deploying Kubernetes. So there's two parts of this. There's the Connect server, which you need regardless of if you use Kubernetes or not. And that can be deployed by Docker, or that can be deployed in Kubernetes. But then there's also the custom resource, the CRD for it, provided by the operator. And if you've been using any of like the external secrets operators, SOPs operators, or stuff like that for Kubernetes, encrypted, sealed secrets, encrypted secrets, all that stuff, the pattern is very similar. So you get a new custom resource type. Scroll past it here, of a 1Password item, and that is fetched from the vault. And you'll notice that there's no other information here about where that vault is. That's abstracted away. So when you deploy your controller into the cluster, that's what's aware of the Connect server and all of that other stuff. So why would you maybe want to use 1Password for managing your infrastructure secrets? Well, I think the best explanation is that for most companies, you have everything automated in your infrastructure. From building your apps to deploying your apps and releasing your apps. But how do your secrets get to the various environments? And basically you have two options these days. One is you use encrypted secrets inside of your Git repo. So you can use SOPs, you can use Git secrets and other things. Or two is, it's just WikiOps. You document that when a new secret is introduced, you have to update all these three environments. So that's fine. And 1Password isn't necessarily solving that 100%. You still need to add the secret to 1Password. It's just the overhead of adding those secrets to your various AWS accounts and environments is messy. And 1Password provides a better UX for developers to do that. You get all the audit trails as well, along with 1Password. And my guess is they're going to start releasing a whole bunch of Vault-like features in 1Password. And why do I think that? Well, that relates to the next announcement. So it's no coincidence that they just acquired SecretHub, which was the managed service for secrets. And I think this was strategic in two ways. One was to reduce the market size to two competitors, HashiCorp Cloud Vault, and then 1Password, but also to buy it so that HashiCorp didn't buy SecretHub, which they maybe should have, since I do see them come up more and more. All right, that's my narrative on that 1Password acquisition and 1Password for secrets for infrastructure. Any comments or concerns about this? Hey, Mohammed, you sound rather faint.
Yeah, okay.
Much better.
Now it's better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a shot for the password provider for Terraform, and nothing much you can do now. You can only create secrets, but you cannot read secrets with the Terraform provider.
You
Also, there is no
cannot? I thought I saw
documentation.
that you could. I thought there was a resource, a data source for that.
Uh,
No?
okay. I didn't find any documentation on the registry, Terraform registry for that. So I think
Oh,
Yeah, if you look in the code, there is a data source, but I think the docs aren't updated yet.
oh, okay, guys, I see.
yeah.
Um,
What I'd be most curious about is if, but I don't think there's any, I don't think they have the ability to do this. Would be if there's a way, if you're using the one password provider, if it can help you keep the secrets out of the Terraform state itself. That
yeah,
would be pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, that's it. Also, I think if you use one password CLI instead of AWS Vault, especially for other providers than AWS, it's gonna be a pretty neat feature for it.
Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't call out. Like, if you're looking for like the cloud agnostic solution, not that it's, I mean, it's not agnostic to one password, but if you want something that is, it's not beholden to AWS or Google Cloud, I guess it's nice having this third party secrets provider.
Yeah.
Anybody else excited about this announcement? See if it's on where it was on the registry. This is not the official one. I know they linked to it in the source. I just Terraform provider here. They're not linking to the public site. All right. Well, I guess that was it on the one password secrets stuff. And yeah, just the other announcement is Cloud Posse is going to release this any day now, which is our first Redshift module here, coming from a customer engagement. So if you have upcoming requirements for Redshift, keep an eye out. Follows all the standard Cloud Posse conventions. Cool. Well, let's move into a Q&A section. There were a lot of questions we didn't get to last week. And I also confess I don't have the answers to like half of these. So hopefully somebody else can help me chime in on this. So Evan was asking, anyone use any of the CNCF tools that work on top of Envoy? If so, did it ease your workflow or make it more complicated? Now, the reason why I struggle with this one is like every service mesh out there under the sun is built on Envoy. So it felt like a very open-ended question. So was there more, Evan, I don't know if you're on the call, was there more specific thing you were getting at bringing up Envoy in the context of this question? Looks like we don't have Evan on the call today, so we'll skip this one for now. And let's see. So Steve, are you on the call today? Steve Hopkins? And we don't have Steve either, so I guess we'll skip that one. And we have Tamsky on the call today. Yeah, we do. Tamsky, sorry, missed your question last week. Let's get to today. So does anyone have feedback or experience with the new JetBrains Projector project? And I don't know what the Projector project is, so if anybody can tell me about it. It's another one of these remote IDEs. Mark? You might be muted, Mark. I see there.
Yeah, I just haven't tested my mic and audio, but
you're coming across in high fidelity.
Okay. I don't have any familiarity with it. It was just an item that popped up as a potential use case for where I'm at.
So JetBrains is the maker, right, of IntelliJ. So
yes.
that would be then the compelling argument, maybe why this is something to look at. If you are an IntelliJ-based developer, you might dig this then. Yeah.
It kind of seemed like a managed workspaces project. AWS workspaces.
Yeah.
I know you were testing those out for a while.
Yeah, yeah. No, I still use AWS Workspaces as my primary develop IDE, or like it's not an IDE per se. It's just a developer environment, and you can use whatever you want, VS Code or whatever on it. I forget what is AWS's own service that competes with this. I forget what it's called. I haven't used it.
Cloud9.
Yeah, Cloud9. Yeah,
I use that with teaching and it's good.
yeah,
It is. It's solid.
yeah. As VS Code, they haven't come out with a remote ID, have they?
They have something that will sync all of your, keep everything in sync across all your different machines, but I don't think they have a remote. Well, I don't actually know. I shouldn't speak to it.
Yeah.
The thing I've seen people do is use Gitpod,
It does
which is
actually.
becoming a
It's
hot
called-
thing.
It integrates with GitHub code spaces actually.
Oh, yeah, that's the
Yep.
code spaces is the new thing. Yeah. Interesting.
Instant dev.
Has anybody played with code spaces? I haven't dabbled with it yet.
Huh.
I saw the announcement. I guess you have to request early access.
Yeah.
So haven't
This
done it.
integrates with VS Code, by the way.
That is cool. Hot space, I guess. All right, and then the next question was from you, Matt Gowie. Has anyone have a solid process for Terraform state migrations in larger teams? So I'm actually not sure, like, what is your use case for doing state migrations in the context where it would affect a larger team? So can you discuss the problem and what you're looking
Yeah.
for?
Maybe it's a larger project space is really what I'm referring to. So basically, the idea is, let's say you have a Terralif that you're breaking up into, a bunch of smaller Terraform root modules, and you need to, move around resources, or you need to, remove a resource or import a resource, anything of like in the Terraform state management type of thing. And maybe it's not about larger teams, but it's more about like Terraform footprint. If you have a large Terraform footprint and you're like doing that type of thing, you can tell developer, like Sarah, the developer, to go off on her machine and do it and run it, and she can make it happen. But it doesn't feel like it's following the like infrastructure as code process. And it can be kludgy in that regard. Now there is a cool project which I know about that does Terraform for migrations, for like Terraform state move commands, called TF migrate or something along those lines. I can look it up, but unfortunately it doesn't support workspaces, and that's it. And very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had seen TF migrate a while ago. This guy, I don't know how to say his name, Minami Joyo, has a lot of really cool Terraform utilities like TF edit, TF lock, HCL edit, TF update, TF schema, all these things. I really dig it. And he's actually a friend also of Mumoshu or Yusuke as well.
Cool.
But so I didn't read this closely when I first saw it, and I was like, well, why would I ever want this? I mean, TF supports migrate. Maybe it's an older thing or whatever. But now when you brought up your example, it's not very GitOps friendly, and this is like a way to describe migrations as you would describe a migration for a database. Then I was like, an epiphany right now. That's really cool.
That's kind of what I want, is the way to do it for a database. Now, unfortunately, this project is like, it's a side project for him. There's actually an open issue in this repo that talks about supporting workspaces, which I've asked him, pinged him on, and he basically said, hey, I'm not working on this anymore. It's too much work for me. But it's, I would love to have something like this, because once you really get on that GitOps approach, it makes the whole, it makes something like this when you're doing it at a scale of, you've got 50 workspaces in Terraform Cloud. How do you deal with those succinctly? It's nice to have something. But yeah, I was wondering if anybody solved this, in a more, bash GitHub action pipeline type of way and had any opinions, or if everybody's just running it from their own machines. And I mean, I think that's like a fine, answer. It's just a problem I'm running into that I would like to solve better.
Well, this is what I talk about when I am on sales calls all the time, is that, you have, I bring it up all the time. You have these, the 4 layers of infrastructure here. And when you're getting into this point where you're migrating state around, you're often dealing in this foundational area. And I look at it like you have this skyscraper with a concrete foundation. And in the beginning, you can make a little bit of edits before the concrete cures 100%. But once, you built it to spec, you have your skyscraper, 100 stories on top of it. Moving state around is something that's just gnarly. You can do it, but I don't know how confident I would be in automating it, especially when we will automate it for this one time, and then we will never touch that line of code again. So it's like a tech debt factory. And I love the discipline of it. I love the concept of it. And I get it for software development. And then we should be doing it here too. I get it. But alas, are we going to invest in it? I don't know.
I think all of that's a good point. And, I think about it like database migrations. I want them to be similar, right? But the thing is that they're not similar to database migrations, is that you only ever apply them once. Database migrations can be Terraform state migrations, you only ever apply once. Database migrations, you bring up your database, you then apply all the migrations to it. But you don't ever need to really do that with Terraform state migrations. So they are more one-off.
Playing devil's advocate now that I understand a little bit more, and you brought up the database migration, like, okay, so you need to make this state migration now to 5 environments, and you're going to roll it out in that order. Okay, I guess that gets really tedious, right? We're not just talking about one environment. So, okay, fair enough. Maybe it does make sense to get really good at doing this first in a scripted, automated way with TF migrate. Get that working in dev, automate in staging, verify it still worked, and then roll it out in production, hopefully with better luck.
Yeah. And I think that the reason I'm trying to solve this is because my client has 8 environments today. So it's like
with the same problem.
We have
8 teraliths.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
8 teraliths you got to rip apart, and we're doing it. It's just painful.
Yeah. And they're stateful such that you can't just destroy and recreate these environments.
Yeah. The thing that we were, I had an engineer working on was that we have a root module that was overly large, and it included, the VPC and all the subnets and all this fun stuff.
I see that faux pas frequently.
You want to be pulled apart. Yeah. Anyway.
Has anybody played with TF Migrate? I'd be really curious to hear your experience working with it. Emil points out that Pulumi has something pretty good for this. Emil, are you able to unmute and share more about how Pulumi solves these things?
Hey, do you hear me well?
Yeah, very well.
Cool. Yeah, they have this alias thing. So basically, every time you define a component, you can say it's an alias of an existing resource, and it'll just use that as like the source of that component. So they have that built in, and it's pretty convenient when you're doing that type of migrations.
Is there a way to, like, I see that as a great stopgap measure, as a way to start managing it this way? Is there a way then to just like move it permanently into?
Yeah, basically it takes ownership when you define an alias.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you can like delete the other resource after. And,
Are you using a lot of Pulumi?
For one of my clients, yeah, I'm doing that.
Cool. How's that working out for you? And do you feel like you'll continue using that for your future clients?
I'm not sure. Like, it's nice, but I feel like some of the stuff is like way overkill to have a programming language.
Yeah.
I like one thing I like when I read Terraform is it's just clear usually. Unless you have
Yeah.
like really convoluted stuff with loops and stuff, then it's a bit annoying.
Which it's becoming, right? Like Terraform has become, like, it used to be so simple to look at it, but now like the language has grown very advanced, and it's not as clear as it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
but Pulumi is like even worse. And one thing I like also from Terraform that I don't like in Pulumi is like when you define a resource inside of a module, it automatically like takes the parent of that module and just becomes a children of that module. But in Pulumi, you have to like specify that it's a children of that module.
Oh, yeah.
And the naming also, it needs to be unique, like globally. It can't just be a name for your module. So you need to like take the name of the parent and add it to the name of your children.
Yeah.
So that's a bit annoying.
You need Terraform null label. You need Cloud Posse's Terraform null label.
Yeah, I actually ported that to.
You did? That's
yeah,
funny.
I did. It's like it was so annoying, so I just let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to say there is some FOMO around Pulumi. We have obviously a very significant investment around Terraform and practices there that I think makes it difficult for us to really embrace it as much as I'd like. Emil, have you played with the CDK variants as well, or?
Just a bit, but it seemed too cumbersome to like use day to day right now. But like maybe I should give it a try. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like with Terraform Cloud and all those like alternatives to Terraform Cloud, it's just easy to use Terraform. Like I got back to like this Pulumi project and I was still running it on my computer. I was like, this is so 2016 or something. Like I want to be running it in the cloud. I don't want to run
But
it.
Pulumi also has their own managed continuous delivery offering.
Yeah, but it only like it's only for the state management and for the like secrets and configuration. So you still need to like run it somewhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it's versus now I just do tfplan and it just runs remotely. I like that. So
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about the local machine and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's cool.
But it's nice though, because like if you're for smaller clients that don't have a large deployments and they are like say they are all in full stack TypeScript, then it makes sense to go Pulumi because then they can understand their infrastructure and they don't need to learn this Terraform.
Yeah.
But like, if you've done like the step of like learning Terraform, then
makes sense. Anyone have anything to add to that? Specifically, kicking the tires on CDK or Pulumi. CDK TF especially. Be curious.
I'll just add that I'm kind of rooting for them all to lose just because I feel invested. I'm too invested in Terraform now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
The thing I was going to say was, it seems like people really love CDK. And I haven't heard as much love for Pulumi, but I'm sure it's out there. But it seems like you bring like a big foot gun around with you having those types of solutions, because you can then, just open up a can of worms, left and right for yourself in your code. And you have to be much more, it's almost hard to write bad Terraform code. These are the things that I tell myself and why Terraform is better. But that's just the way I think about it. I'm interested to see if CDK TF takes off. That'll be an interesting one.
We had a conversation on this. I guess this was last year sometime, in September. A month ago, though, got a very, very emotional, impassioned comment on this, though, where somebody lays out their case for Pulumi. So thought I'd just share that just for what it's worth.
I'd like to read this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did not engage you off. I'm sorry. I knew I was gonna go down the rabbit hole on this one, but you brought up many interesting.
One thing that you need to like remember is at the end of the day, they are still using the same provider underneath.
That's not my understanding necessarily. Like they started that way with Perimeter.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they ran into a lot of limitations with Terraform and have embraced at least a more like, what do you call it? Like AWS SDK native approach as well, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I was on GCP, I think they're still using the Terraform module, and like the Terraform provider, and it happened like a couple of times. There was a bug, and that was due. It's really hard to debug, like because you have 2 layers of where it can like, cause issues. But yeah,
it's so funny how these things go, and everything is cyclical. And what we do in our industry is like. Declarative is good, declarative is bad, imperative is good, imperative is bad, and then you create the declarative way on the imperative system, and then a declarative system on top of that imperative system. And I just find it amusing. Jenkins, they had the imperative pipelines at first, and then you got the declarative pipelines as code and everything. So grass will always be greener on the other side. All right, let's see here. Any other questions that popped up in office hours today? Let's see here. I think we covered everything. Let's see in the Zoom chat. Any questions there?
I think we didn't cover Mazin's question there.
Oh, what was it?
It's similar about migrating, importing AWS infrastructure.
Yes, it's so similar. I conflated the two. Mazin, are you on the call today?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, awesome. Sorry, I skipped over your question there. That was not deliberate. So you asked a question. How do people approach migrating existing AWS infrastructure into Terraform for large-scale projects with lots of resources? So were you on the call, I think last week and even the week before, a tool came up a couple times just to put that out there. And I'm not saying this is the right answer, but for these kind of like forklifting into Terraform kind of situations, Google has a project called Terraformer.
Yeah, which I was going to recommend that one. I've actually used it quite a bit.
And this is the equivalent of disassembling an application and managing it that way is to infrastructure what Terraformer is. It's going to generate a bunch of Terraform code. It's going to represent exactly what you have there. It's going to let you start massaging that with your Terraform code. Is it the way you would have written the Terraform code as an engineer or developer? Hell no. And I don't know which one of those problems you're tasked with solving.
I actually was trying a Terraformer like
you were?
an hour ago, and it sounds like the same concept, but it would have need a lot of refactoring and all of
a lot of love.
Yeah, but still, like if it's actually working, it didn't really work out for me the first time I tried it, but I would try it for sure. But I was looking for other ideas, like how do people approach it without Terraformer?
So one feature that I think is not obvious in Terraformer that I discovered a bit later is its support for a plan. Have you used that, Mazen? Because I found that allows you to right off the bat choose names for your resources. Otherwise, you end up with these complicated names that it builds for you, right? And I found that to be quite a bit better. So you get it to generate your resources, it comes up with a plan, and then you name things, and then when it actually imports them, it'll use the names you told it to, and that set things up for me quite a bit.
So you actually like you text replace inside the plan.json file, or use JQ or something?
Yeah, there's a section in the plan where things are named, and then you replace those with actual names you want, and then it'll be a lot better.
Is this a bona fide Terraform plan, or is this a Terraformer plan?
No, it's a Terraformer plan. I didn't
Oh,
get
okay,
into
gotcha,
you know,
gotcha.
in detail, but I remember that so it has a bunch of metadata that it needs to keep track of initially, and
Okay.
then you can throw that away after.
That makes sense. So it's their own JSON schema.
Yeah,
For
I'm
this
pretty
plan.
sure, yeah.
That's good advice. The other cool thing that was brought to my attention was I didn't realize how many data sources it supports. AWS GCP, Datadog, OpsGenie, and the list goes on. So
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when I saw your format, like, can you please go up to the part where
oh yeah, here. Yeah, look at all that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you choose, for example, AWS. Yeah, here. So you would see all of the services that they support, and I think every single service that they would like to support, they would have to write their own wrapper for that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a labor of love, and you can imagine the person who wrote this initially, like they had to solve it, for their immediate problem. But is this an ongoing problem that you have? And you don't. I mean, so the users who use this kind of product have you have really high churn on open source adoption for a project like this, and constantly need to solicit more support and help. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a position where you have to pull that in, it's kind of terrible. But if you don't really have any choice, like I'm looking at a situation right now where, at least with Terraformer, if I've got something pulled in and it's in we've got a lot of things we just need to clean up, right? So if we delete something and we make a mistake, we can always go back and fix it now that we at least have code for it, But it definitely needs refactoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's another use case, like I have a project where they're still using OpsWorks, right, in AWS. And so they have like a stack that's completely manually created with OpsWorks, through OpsWorks. It takes a couple of days to stand up a new stack. Lots of manual steps. It's awful. So at some point I, bit the bullet and convinced them that, let's Terraformize that thing. It'll still be OpsWorks, but at least all the configuration is in Terraform, right? And so Terraformer was really helpful with that, at least to get to a starting point.
I could see where I'm being thrown in the deep end in some enterprise environment and asked to Terraform this stuff. And like being a programmer and being a Terraform expert, I would rather look at the HCL code than I would look in the AWS UI and try and untangle the mess that's there. So
yeah, exactly. I'd rather have it. I'd rather have it something I could put in code.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever used like
from 6 days, it took them now around 10 minutes to deploy the infrastructure now.
I missed the first part. We had some overlap.
Oliver part, for the problem that it took more than 2 days to deliver the infrastructure. Now with Terraform, it would take like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Once you get to that point, but it could take a little bit of iteration.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're beyond that, you can create new stacks in like half an hour, right? It's whatever amount of time AWS takes to provision their resources. It's awesome.
So Andrew Grube in the Zoom chat mentions that he actually tried to use this tool as well to create a template for their ECS clusters, task definitions, auto-scaling rules, etc. But it doesn't support anything past the cluster. It won't provide any of the other things that he mentioned. So it sounds like it wouldn't help with the task definitions, auto-scaling rules, etc. So that's interesting. Let's see here just to cross-check that here for ECS.
Sorry, but it did work really, really, really well.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Okay. So you felt you got the value out of it in the end.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool.
a bit on the side of that, but like I used Cloud Mapper usually when I start, like if I'm given like an AWS account which I know nothing about.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, Cloud Mapper. Yeah.
I agree. I love all of Scott Piper's tools.
Cool. Let's see. Any other questions I've overlooked or new questions? We got another about 15 minutes to talk shop here. Any other cool announcements? So much stuff coming out lately. Oh no, the awkward silence. Save me, somebody.
I do have a question. Like, it's like I have this project right now that the client has very weird path, like a quite complex like distribution of path in GCP with the load balancer, but I'm moving that to AWS, and I'm wondering like if like if I put everything in there on CloudFront, and if so, like what's the best way to like remove path prefixes? Is it with the Lambda on Edge, or have you seen something else like that?
Pat prefixes?
Like say everything is on one domain and you have like /API, but like on GCP you can just like tell the load balancer just remove /API.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not current enough at the technical level to say there. I mean, the reality is with Lambda at Edge, ultimately everything is possible, or not everything, but something like that would be possible. But I'm not that crazy about Lambda at Edge because of the deployment time, and I don't think they can still be deleted and stuff like that. Can I guess what is this? To what level of path rewrites does CloudFormation or CloudFront support? I don't know off the top of my head.
I think rewrites are difficult with CloudFront. I remember, like, I don't know if there's something recent, but when I looked at it a couple months ago, I think the only way to do it with Lambdas. So you can link your CloudFront to a Lambda to process the request, basically, and that was how you had to do it. So there was nothing like really provided out of the box, as I remember.
Yeah, it doesn't look like our module does anything for it.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll probably go down that road then. It's just I was asking if I didn't miss something.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's see, what else? Any other questions?
I have a question. I had to use serverless on one project, and I heard a lot of good things about it, and I like the idea. But then I found out, in using it, that if a team has already invested some time in Terraform, a lot of the things that, at least in this project, were being tentatively done with serverless could just as easily be done with Terraform. Creating a Lambda is no more difficult in Terraform than it is it's not easier in serverless. You still have, to have a spec file, and you specify your layers and blah, blah, blah. If you are new in the sort of infrastructure landscape and you want to, serverless is a great way to start because, it'll do your exec roles for you and all, those kinds of little things behind the scenes. But if you're already invested in Terraform, I found there's not as much benefit. Plus, you're introducing a new way of thinking about deployment, which is CloudFormation, right? Which serverless framework uses. Sorry, that wasn't specific. I meant serverless framework specifically.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Anton Babenko's project, serverless.tf?
Yeah. So well, is that the one in the Terraform registry? Because I did find something like that.
Yeah, it's the one in Terraform AWS modules. Is also this one here.
Yeah, and then Babenko, I think his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up using that. Now, so yeah, so I was just curious what other people's experiences were with that versus serverless. If there's
to me, this ends up in this territory like we were talking earlier with Pulumi. If like you're a TypeScript organization and then introducing Terraform, is a harder sell perhaps when you could just use Pulumi and everything is the same. If you're an organization with already sophisticated Terraform adoption, maybe you want to then fit that square peg through the Terraform round hole, which is possible because Terraform has local exec and you can get away with everything. What I don't like about it, from my perspective, is I think serverless, the framework, serverless, the company behind it, is providing a lot of thought leadership on how to do serverless beyond just how to deploy it. And I feel like Terraform is a pretty good tool for doing deployment of infrastructure. But I think it's a pretty bad CI tool or build tool. Like, I don't want to build my serverless packages or dependencies and stuff like that with Terraform. So I don't like that. I feel like serverless and the Terraform solutions I see for deploying Lambdas, I think overreach their bounds where they actually enter into the area of build systems, where they build the Node.js app or the Java app, and they package that as a zip file, and then they deploy that. But I don't think Terraform should be responsible for that piece at all. And I think that piece should move into whatever CI pipelines you have today. So your GitHub Actions, they create your serverless app, and they push that artifact somewhere. And then how you deploy that artifact, that is a conversation we can start talking about. Do we use Terraform? And if we use Terraform, I would only suggest using Terraform at that stage if you have a very elegant Terraform continuous delivery story. So how are you doing continuous delivery with Terraform? Are you using Spacelift or Terraform Cloud or Scalar or one of these other solutions? Then maybe that makes sense to trigger your continuous delivery for Terraform. But if you don't, then I think I would look for other options for deploying that, whether it be like for example, Serverless TF has their own continuous delivery offering for it as well. Is it clear kind of the part that I don't like about the Terraform building your Lambdas?
Yeah, I think for me, like there's two parts of Lambdas, right? There's the code that will be run when the Lambda gets called.
Yeah.
And there's the Lambda as an infrastructure item, right?
Yeah.
That has a representative in the AWS console. I think that piece does belong with Terraform.
I think it does. It's totally acceptable in Terraform, and I agree, and would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right, and I mean, so like there is a module in the Terraform registry. I think it's called Terraform AWS Lambda, and I think it does refer to the serverless.tf, but it's a separate module. I don't know the details of the differences, but that one does do the packaging. So, but that's optional. You can tell it that you don't want that. So in other words, you could have your Jenkins or whatever, package up your Lambda code, put it in S3, and then get this Terraform AWS Lambda module to fetch it from there and deploy it with your Lambda.
Yeah.
Provision your Lambda, basically.
The thing I don't like, what we want to avoid is like where you run Terraform, you don't want that to have all your build tools installed, right? That's the key thing. So Terraform should not be involved with CI. All right. Any other questions? We got about 10 minutes left.
It looks like Steve Hopkins joined the call if you wanted to circle back to that IPAM question.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, let me do that. Hey, Steve, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So last week you had a question we couldn't get to, I don't think. Is anyone using any type of IPAM software dynamically in Terraform, or have a way you define and slice superblocks and supernets? are you basically saying how you do programmatic subnetting, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to break it down, just like how are you managing IP space?
Yeah.
Like as all great things, usually start on our company. It started off in a spreadsheet, and then it's like
Yeah.
So
and having like a registry of all the subnets and where they're allocated and being used, kind of.
Yeah, and there's two things, like, so one, you slice it, and then how do you, like, can you pragmatically grab something from that slice, and then how do you view the whole picture as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to a much, much more smaller degree, I mean, that's where what we're trying to solve with our dynamic subnet module. But this is not really creating the registry for the organization as such, or like in our case, you would divvy up the subnet space in the root account, and then you could allocate that subnet space to the member accounts in AWS, for example. But like we're talking across corporate and networks, across Google Cloud, across AWS, across all these systems, how do you kind of manage IP space in a Terraform, like an infrastructure as code manner, where you can claim blocks of IP space? It's an interesting question. I don't know. Anybody had to solve this?
I think one important part to it is making sure that your IP space resources, things like subnets, things like your VPC, are very well roped off from everything else, the applications that are deployed on top of them, because then you have the ability to at least granularly define permissions around those resources or those workspaces, which would be, I guess, would be a starting point.
I didn't quite follow. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that, like, if you have your IP, like your subnets built alongside of your EKS cluster, or your your Lambdas or whatever it is, then you don't really have the ability to do principal least privilege on that the workspace that manages those resources. So I feel like that's like the smallest, more granular part of this, is that you can make sure to have correct role-based access control around who manages those network resources. Once you're at a scale that you have to worry about dealing with large different sets of IP addresses and subnets.
Yeah, so to your point, I mean, like when we talk about our layers here, I think that this is such a foundational piece. When you're up here with your applications, or even when you're deploying your platform here, you're already well beyond the time of provisioning subnets and allocating subnets and doing that. So in terms of separation of concerns, this is a foundational concern. And that this would be the place that the registry of your subnets and that stuff belongs. Once you're deploying your platform, ECS, EKS, Beanstalk, whatever, you're building that on top of VPCs and subnets that already exist. You should never ever have a Terraform module that creates an EKS cluster and its own subnets. That's not my belief, at least. I think it operates on existing subnets and VPCs.
Yeah, I agree with those principles. I was just trying to see if anyone had any type of way of like administrating it or viewing it or whatever. So like I was kind of looking at net blocks, and I didn't know if there's anything that interacted with its IP, because you can set up not a super network guy, but I think they call them aggregates, and so then you can basically request a chunk off of it, and then you can also.
I bet one could achieve something very similar with Terraform. Just using remote state as your system of record, and just coming up with the data model in the form of maps and writing that as an output would be sufficient way of being able to accomplish a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, and then the only thing you need to solve for on that side would be like, how do you show that to how do you see the whole picture?
Yeah.
kind of
How do you communicate that to the rest of the org and stuff like that? Yeah.
Without having to like log into each thing or something.
Yeah. No, and these things are always at odds with each other, right? Like I love GitOps principles, but Git is a pretty crappy backend for interactive applications. Like on the one side, it'd be really nice just to request and reserve that in some web UI, but then you also want the system of record to be your Git. So now you have your web UI reserving Git blocks, by opening pull requests, and then those are asynchronous and gotta get merged or whatnot. And I don't know, it just gets really messy when a database ultimately becomes the easiest thing for it. And for that, I must imagine there's software for managing it. But
yeah, in the past, I've always had like really defined like this. It came about because of like one kind of like account that we have. It has a big wide space that we allow it, but then depending on the customer, it gets like kind of a different size. And so before, it was always very pre-stamped on like what we were doing. So you just like, oh, we can fit 20 of these over here. We can do it there. So that's kind of how this problem came about.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Anybody else have anything to add to that? We got about 4 minutes left. Well, all right. I think we will wrap things up a little bit earlier today. Thanks everyone for participating and asking your questions. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, head over to youtube.com/c/cloudposse. And you can get notifications when we push new episodes. Also, Andy on the team is hard at work at slicing up our office hours into individual segments where we explain specific topics. These are basically takeouts from our office hour segments. So it's another great way to consume our office hours without listening to the full hour presentation. If you haven't joined our Slack team, we have about 3,600 very active members in slack.cloudposse.com. We also do a podcast of the office hours. So if you want to consume this from your car, head to podcast.cloudposse.com to get those. We host these sessions every week. If you want to register for the next office hours segment, head over to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. See you all next week, same time, same place.
Thanks.
Thank you.